You ever notice that when a new leader takes over, sometimes the first thing they stop seeing is the people? Not literally, of course. They can see you sitting there. They know your name. But somehow, everything you've done before they arrive disappears, as if your entire career started the day they walked through the door. And if you've ever experienced that, today's episode is for you. Hi, I'm Dr. Theresa Haskins, and welcome to Think Differently, the podcast that challenges the status quo and explores the power of neurodiversity to create a more inclusive and accessible world. Together, we will talk about everything from the value of different perspectives to the limitless potential of human beings. We'll explore how embracing differences can lead to endless possibilities and how you can maximize strengths to make a positive impact on the world. So sit back, relax, and join me as we get ready to think differently. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Think Differently. Today, I want to talk to you about something that doesn't get named enough. And I think it doesn't get named because it tends to happen quietly, not as one dramatic moment, but as a slow erosion and an accumulation of small things over time. It's what happens when you end up working for a leader, often a new manager, who doesn't see you for who you are. Now, this isn't a toxic leader. It's not someone who is overtly hostile. It's just someone who has decided, consciously or not, what you are, who you are, and what you're capable of, based almost entirely on your current role. And that decision doesn't include the full picture of what you bring or why you probably got that role in the first place. So you get reduced to your current title, your current scope of role, and everything you've built before, the problems you solved, the things you know how to do, it just becomes invisible. I can tell you from my own experience leading underperforming teams, when senior leadership would say, fix this team, and you're probably going to have to let a lot of these people go. Almost every time when I dug in, the team wasn't underperforming because they lacked a skill. It was because they had been told no before, or that there was a lack of resources, or maybe they weren't empowered to do the things they thought they should do. I rarely found people who didn't have the skills and talent that it took to be successful. So I think about that reality and what it means for the person on the other side of it, the employee. The person who has the skills, but no one is giving them the opportunity to show it. And I actually have two versions of this story, both real, that illustrate it perfectly. The first was when there was a team being evaluated because they were only focused on delivering tactical training. And the thinking was, we need to modernize, we need to be more holistic, we need to scale, and this team doesn't have the skills. We're going to have to replace them. So this new leader came in, and they started hiring their friends and people from the outside. And they asked those new people to do the very work the existing team had been wanting to do for years. And the existing team was demoted and now reported to these net new people who didn't know the company, the history, or the product. And it was highly demoralizing and very upsetting to many of the team. Some of them left. What that well-intentioned leader never bothered to find out was that the team that they demoted had been explicitly told to stay in their tactical training lane by the prior manager. Their job was to focus on the tactical, technical training. That was the direction they were given. The capability to do more holistic leadership-aligned training was absolutely there. The direction to use those skills was not. And no one thought to ask which one of these issues resulted in the team doing some pretty basic training delivery. So that story happened and that team kind of exploded. Then I have a second version of a very similar story, and this time I was the leader on point. Similar setup, a team doing long analog in-person training sessions. Senior leadership brought me in because they wanted innovation, digital programming, something more modern and scalable. And I was told that I was probably going to have to gut the team and rebuild. Except I don't like being told what to do, and I like to make my own decisions. So I didn't walk in and start making changes right away. I didn't even introduce myself as the person who was brought there to make significant change. I just started asking questions. I asked questions about the team, their background, their current work, what they loved about their job, what frustrated them most. Was the job what they thought it was going to be after all these years? And more importantly, what would they change if they could? Conversation after conversation. Every single person on that team had an answer to that last question. And here's what got me. They all wanted to change the very things I had been brought in to fix. So instead of gutting the team and bringing in new people, I made them the architects of the change. They became the leaders of the very transformation they had been wanting for years and just needed someone to ask them about it. And because I didn't gut the team and I empowered them to act in the ways they could, we got there faster, significantly faster than if I had fired everyone and started over with people who didn't know the organization, the culture, or the work. So when you pull out, it's the same situation with two completely different outcomes. And the only difference was whether the leader bothered to ask and actually get to know the people. So now, when you're that employee, when you're the one in the position of not being seen, these stories may not feel helpful because when you're stuck in that situation, you don't control the environment and you have a big challenge to control the outcome. The first thing I want you to hear is that this view of you is not a verdict on your talent. Your capability didn't go anywhere. But I also know that knowing that intellectually and feeling it as true are two very different things. Because when you're consistently treated as less than what you are, it starts to work on you from the inside. So you try to prove your value, and then suddenly you're too eager, you pull back, now you're too passive, you advocate for yourself, you're coming on too strong. There is no right move inside a system that has already decided what you are. And this is where my work in neurodivergent frameworks connects, because what I see in neurodivergent employees all the time is this exact pattern. Leaders making snap judgments about capability without pausing to ask, what's happening? What direction was given? What supports exist? What talents are here not being leveraged? The frameworks I build are designed specifically to interrupt that pattern. Because you can always choose to pause. You can always choose to ask. But knowing why this happens doesn't tell you, the employee, what to do next. And that's what I want to spend some time on today. Because the advice you'll usually get from your friends and loved ones is know your worth and leave. And I want to be honest, that's pretty unhelpful for many people in most situations. Because you can't just always just get up and leave. Getting a new job isn't something you just do on a whim. And beyond that, maybe you actually loved your work. Maybe you've been with your company a long time. Having a new manager who doesn't see you shouldn't mean you have to leave a job you were great at. So here's how I think about it. First, name what's happening, not to your manager, just to yourself. Recognize the pattern. See it for what it is. Because until you can separate what's happening from how it's making you feel about yourself, you can't make a clear decision about anything. We don't want to make decisions from places of hurt or anger if we can help it. Second, assess the situation honestly, not hopefully, honestly. Is there any real opening with this manager? Do they seem curious about anyone on their team? When you raise ideas, do they listen? Because there's a real difference between a leader who is unaware and going through the motions and doing what they were told to do, and a leader who has already decided this team isn't worth their time. If there's an opening, have the conversation, but come in prepared, not defensive. Come in with what you bring, what you've done, what you're capable of, and connect it to what they are trying to accomplish. Don't just say, here's who I am. Say, here's what I see you're building, and here's what I could do to contribute to that. Leaders respond well to that. But be honest with yourself about whether that opening exists. Spending energy trying to prove yourself to someone who isn't looking is one of the most depleting things you can do with your time. Third, before you look for the door, look laterally. This has been my strategy more times than I can count. Go where they know your worth without having to leave your company. Internal pivots are one of the most underrated career moves there are. There are often people within your own organization who have seen your work and would welcome you onto their team. That's not settling. That's being strategic about where you invest yourself, your talent, and time. And then there's always the option of leaving. It's a real option. But I want to push back on the idea that leaving is always the brave choice or the obvious one, especially if you have real time in your organization. The relationships you've built, the institutional knowledge you carry, those do have value. So leave for the right reasons, with a real plan, executed with intention. That's different than running away from a bad situation. Running rarely solves the thing you're running from. So if you are in this moment right now, and based on my feeds in social media, many of you are, if you're sitting with the weight of being unseen or underestimated or reduced, know that the problem was never your capability. It's others' willingness to see it. And the work now is making sure you don't let their inability to see you correctly become the story you start telling yourself about yourself. That's the Think Differently moment. Not just thinking differently about your organization or leader, but thinking differently about what their limitations say about you. Because you know what? They don't say anything about you. Your talent didn't diminish because it went unseen. Your capabilities are not gone because your work was descoped. You have value. And the goal is to put yourself where that value can be seen. Thanks for listening to another episode of Think Differently. If this one hit close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Think Differently. I hope you found our discussion today insightful and thought-provoking. I want to thank Audio Work Studios for their exceptional production and recording support. Without their expertise and dedication, this podcast would not be possible. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to share it with others. Your support helps us to reach new audiences and promote neurodiversity in our world. Also, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite platform so that you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. We look forward to seeing you again soon on Think Differently.